Hey, we're back! So a few things have changed since my last video. For one, you can see my ugly mug. For two, it's fucking freezing. Look at that frozen lake over there. It's fucking cold out here. But we're here for one purpose. We're gonna be going over Tier 2, Part 1 of the Oddities Iceberg. Now I've decided to split this tier into 3 parts because I don't want to do another hour-long video. That's just personal preference. So yeah, without further ado, we're just gonna hop right into it. Starting us off today, we got Oumuaumua. It was the first interstellar object that was detected to pass through our solar system. It was pretty small in terms of spooky space stuff, measuring between 100 to 1,000 meters long and 35 to 167 meters wide. To my American audiences, that is 300 to 3,000 feet by 115 to 548 feet. It had a red color and was propelled by non-gravitational acceleration. It moved so fast, in fact, that was likely of extrasolar origin. In addition to that, it was moving so fast that it would eventually leave our solar system and continue to interstellar space. The exact age and system of origin are unknown, which has led some to speculate that this is not just a piece of space junk, but is instead a piece of alien technology, but there is no evidence to support that. Our next topic is the 1904 Olympic Marathon. This occurred on August 30th in St. Louis and was supposed to be 24.85 miles or 40 kilometers long, but because of some very poor play and supervising, it became, for lack of better terms, a complete shit show. The race happened on the hottest day of the year, and not on a normal track. No, instead they ran on dusty country roads, and there were only 2 stations to get water in the entire race. And out of 40 participants, only 13 managed to finish the race. The winner of the race was Thomas Hicks, with a time of 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 53 seconds. And he was hallucinating and nearly collapsed when he crossed the finish line, due to his trainer giving him alcohol, raw eggs, and drugs during the race. Well, that's not entirely true. Technically, there was another first place winner of the race. His name was Frederick Lors, and he was technically the first person to cross the finish line, with a time of 3 hours and 13 minutes. But after a few minutes, reports came flooding in from spectators saying that they saw Frederick going out of a car a few miles from the end of the race. It turns out that Frederick had hitchhiked about 11 miles across the race. It's thought that his intentions were that he gave up, and he was going to get a ride to go back to a hotel or something. But at some point, he just thought, fuck it, and decided to pretend that he won the race. But he was eventually found out and was promptly disqualified. 8800 Blue Lick Road is the address of a strange house in Louisville, Kentucky that went viral back in 2020. The house went viral after a 3D walkthrough was uploaded on the internet, being described by many as cursed, odd, or in the case of one comment I saw, downright fucked up. The story behind the house is that it was originally a church, which explains the weird architecture of the building, and the man who owns the business now mainly uses it as a storage unit for his legitimate business, where he buys and sells discount items and then resells them for profit on Amazon. I say legitimate because the police have raided the house multiple times because the man who owns the house was allegedly selling stolen goods. The house remains popular online as inspired a small speedrun community that raced to find some of the weird oddities the house has to offer. Now on the iceberg itself, it leads to a very popular YouTube video by Defunct Land, which will be in the description, so check it out. Action Park is a well-known amusement park that has seen many controversies because quite a few deaths have been attributed to the park. This is because of the poorly designed attractions and its untrained work staff. It is located in New Jersey, Vernon Township at the Great George Ski Resort, and most of the staff is, or at least was at some point, composed of mostly undertrained and underage staff. At least 6 people have died at the park, which led to it gaining many names such as Traction Park, Accident Park, or my personal favorite, Class Action Park. Due to the negative stigma around the Action Park brand, it has now been renamed to Mountain Creek Water Park. The Aeoliple, also known as the Heroes or the Heroine engine, is a rudimentary steam engine made by the Greek mathematician Vitruvius in 30 BC, and its invention is often wrongly credited to another Greek mathematician called the Hero of Alexandria. But do not be confused, Vitruvius was the inventor. The name comes from the Greek god of air and wind, Aeolus. Our next entry is Aleister Crowley. Now, Aleister Crowley was an English occultist who was born into a wealthy family, but for whatever reason, he rejected his parents and went out to study at college, specifically Trinity University at Cambridge. In addition to being an occultist, I got a list here, he was also a philosopher, ceremonial musician, poet, painter, novelist, and mountaineer. Honestly, what hasn't this man done? Hell, apparently he got bored of all that and just decided to become a religious figure. In his religion, Thelma, he claimed he was entrusted with guiding humanity humanity into the Eon of Horus in the early 20th century. And hey, remember when I say he studied at Cambridge? Some biographers have even suggested that he may have been recruited into the British Secret Service during his time there. Back to some of his other hobbies though, let's talk about how he became a musician. At some point during his life, he joined the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, who were a little bit later on this iceberg. There he was trained in ceremonial magic, but during his time at the Golden Dawn, he would also pick up on a few bad habits such as drug use, which he would also continue to do until his death. Allan Hills is in East Antarctica, and there's not much off about the hills themselves, but rather, the main interest is in a meteorite that was found nearby. In an article published in Journal Science, there are reports of structures in the rocks, and they interpreted them as alien life, which, if these claims were true, would be the first definitive sign of extraterrestrial life. Hell, even the current president at the time, Bill Clinton, made a speech about the discovery, but as you could guess, these claims were false. Or so you would think. The rock is still cause for debate today, and has yet to be disproven or debunked, so this is still one of the best pieces of evidence for extraterrestrial life. Another interesting scientific discovery near Allan Hills is that trapped under the ice of Allan Hills is air that could be up to 2.7 million years old. But don't get your hopes up, the air is pretty much identical to the air we breathe today. This is an ancient Greek hand-powered model of the solar system, and technically is the oldest known example of a computer. It has two main uses, one to predict astronomical positions and eclipses decades in advance. It could also be used to track the 4-year cycle of the Athletic Games. It was discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Antikythera, a Greek island, in 1901. Originally, when it was discovered, it was a massive lump, but later it was separated into 3 main fragments, which have now been further divided into 82 fragments. The scientific community seemed to agree that it was designed and constructed by Hellenistic scientists in about 87 BC. What is strange is that no machine of similar complexity was found until the 14th century, with the invention of astronomical clocks. This large gap of time has led some to use this piece of technology as proof for some conspiracy theories. My favorite being the phantom time theory. Look it up. Fragments of the mechanism are kept at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Alright, there we go. A little bit of a change in plans, but we're gonna roll with it. I got a little bit too cold to stay out there, and my MacBook actually started bugging out because it got too cold, so we're just gonna film the rest of this in my college dorm. So next one is ball lightning. Ball lightning is a rare and unexplained weather phenomenon in which, as the name suggests, a ball of lightning that ranges from either being pea-sized to several meters long in diameter moves around the sky for much longer than a normal bolt of lightning. Now, don't be confused with St. Elmo's fire from Tier 1, they are completely different things. While St. Elmo's lightning can signify lightning strike is imminent, ball lightning is just lightning straight up. According to reports from the 19th century, ball lightning can eventually explode and leave behind an odor of sulfur, and ball lightning has been described by many people throughout history. Despite these numerous reports, the scientific community still has no way to explain ball lightning due to the scarce amount of actual data on the phenomena. And technically speaking, ball lightning is not confirmed to exist. To my knowledge, ball lightning has never been caught on camera. The only reason we think it exists is because of the numerous public sightings they have, but hey, this could just be another case of mass hysteria or something. Anyways, ball lightning's existence as a physical phenomena still remains unproven. The next one on the iceberg is the Beast of Gevaudan. The Beast of Gevaudan is the name associated with the man-eating animal or animals that ravaged the Margerid Mountains of south-central France between 1764 and 67. The attacks happened in an area spanning 90 by 80 kilometers. The description of the beast is as follows. One or more beasts of a tawny russet color with dark stripes and a dark stripe down its back. A tail longer than a wolf's and a tuft the size of a calf or cow's that seems to fly or bound across the field towards its victims. Goddamn, that sounds horrifying. According to witnesses, the beast would attack with its razor-sharp teeth and claws. Now, the main theories are that the beast was either A, a young lion, B, a striped hyena, C, a large wolf, D, a large dog, or E, a wolf dog. But none of these can be confirmed, obviously. Now, the Kingdom of France obviously didn't want citizens to be killed by whatever this thing was, so they spent a not-so-little fortune to kill the beasts, although the exact amount is unknown. We do know that they used several nobles' resources, soldiers, and royal huntsmen, and citizens to hunt the beast. The exact number of victims varies from report to report. An older report claimed that the animals killed between 60 to 100 people and injured more than 30, while a more recent report from 1987 claimed that there were 210 attacks resulting in 113 deaths and 49 injuries, and of those attacks, 98 of them were at least partially eaten, but the way the victims died remained consistent throughout both reports. The victims were killed by having their throats ripped out, and the reason we are unsure if there were one or multiple beasts is because the beasts were reported killed multiple times before the attack stopped. The next entry is Bir Tawil. Bir Tawil is an area of land along the border between Egypt and Sudan. It is both uninhabited and unclaimed by either country. It is sometimes referred to as the Bir Tawil Triangle. It is unclaimed because there was a discrepancy between the straight political boundary between the two countries in 1899. The boundary was established in 1902. Black Volga is an underground passageway shell grotto in Kent, England. And for those of you who were like me and had no idea what a shell grotto was, it is essentially a room where the walls are covered in shells. They are usually for decorations and are not meant to be lived in. That being said, the underground tunnel is about 2,000 square feet of mosaic and uses about 4.6 million shells. And although it was discovered in 1835, its age and purpose remain a mystery today. It is raised a Grade 1 listed building and is open to the public. Okay, in the last entry, I mentioned a grade that the building received. I thought I should probably explain what that was because a few more entries on the iceberg do also have a grade. Alright, so there are some buildings or structures in England or Ireland that are labeled as listed buildings by the group Historic England, and the grades they can receive are Grade 1 or A, Grade 2 star or B, and Grade 2 or C. Grade 1 or A is a building with exceptional interest, and Grade 2 or C is a building that has a decent amount of interest, and Grade 2 star or B is somewhere in the middle. That's all. Back to the entries. Alright, the Bloop was an ultra-low frequency underwater sound that the U.S. Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration heard in 1997. It sounded like this. Hopefully that's enough time. Now, for the longest time, we had no idea what this could have been, and this led to a shit ton of conspiracy theories around it, such as that it was Cthulhu, or I'm sure you've all seen this image commonly associated with it. But in 2012, the NOAA came out and said the noise was consistent with sound generated by glacial movements and ice carvings. And since then, everybody's accepted that this noise was made by a glacier falling or something similar. But some conspiracy theorists still believe the Bloop was made by some enormous creature. Now, the Blythe Intaglios are similar to the Nazca lines in Tier 1 of the iceberg. The Blythe Intaglios is a group of gigantic figures, or intaglios, drawn on the ground near Blythe, California, in the Colorado Desert, just west of US Highway 95. They are made by humans for an unknown reason, and although Blythe Intaglios is one of the most well-known ones, there are over 200 intaglios in the Colorado Desert, and strangely enough, the Colorado Desert is the only place in the US where you can find desert intaglios. The group contained 3 human figures, 2 four-legged animals, and a spiral. The largest human figure is 171 feet, 52 meters, big, and the figures are so big that some of them were not seen by natives of the land until 1930s. Currently, no Native American group in the area have claimed to have made them, and some of them are believed to date from the prehistoric period, but we still don't know their exact age or creator. Bobby Dunbar was a 4-year-old American boy who disappeared and was later returned to his family. Now, I say family like this because this probably wasn't Bobby. You see, investigators at the time thought they found Bobby in Mississippi with William Cantwell Walters, who was traveling for work with the child, and Bobby's parents claimed the child is theirs. But William insisted that the child was not in fact Bobby, but a completely unrelated child named Charles Bruce Anderson, who was the son of a woman who worked with his family, and that his mother gave him custody of the child. Now, the police were hearing none of this and arrested Bobby Walters and called the mother of Bobby to come down and identify the boy. As we all know now, Bobby's mother claimed the child is hers. Shortly after this, Mrs. Anderson reported to the newspapers that the boy was hers, but after being unable to identify the boy out of a lineup, she was brushed off and her claims were dismissed. Miss Anderson, being unable to afford a lawyer for the long legal battle that would have happened, went back to North Carolina, and that was that. The kid recovered and would live out his days as Bobby Dunbar until his death on March 8th, 1966. Now, this was where the case was left until 2004, when one of Bobby's descendants decided to take a DNA test and found out that they had no blood relation with her cousin, which showed without a shadow of a doubt that the kid taken that day was not Bobby, but was instead Charles Anderson. Now, this solves everything except for one thing. Nobody knows whatever happened to the actual Bobby Dunbar, and he is currently listed as presumed dead. Boontling is an Argot, which is a language spoken to prevent outsiders from understanding their conversations, and is only spoken in Boonville, Northern Carolina. It was created in the 1890s, and today almost nobody speaks it, with less than 100 people speaking it worldwide. It has become infamous around the cities it originated in due to its limited speakership. It originally gained attention in the 60s and 70s when researchers publicly showed a Boontling speaker whose name was Bobby Chipmunk Glover. The Belmez Faces are an alleged paranormal phenomena in a private house in Spain. They started appearing in 1971 when the residents of the house claimed that images of faces appeared on the concrete floor of their house. The faces have been the reason a large number of sightseers have visited the town of Belmez, and various faces have supposedly appeared and disappeared seemingly at random since 1971. Many of the residents of Belmez believe that the faces are supernatural. Many paranormal investigators believe the faces are a thoughtographic phenomena, which is when an image from one's mind is burnt onto a surface. However, many skeptics believe that the family who owned the house made the faces up as a hoax for financial gain. Christopher Jonathan McCandles was an American adventurer who would live an increasingly nomadic lifestyle as he grew up. He was the subject of the non-fiction book Into the Wild, which later got a movie adaptation. His nomadic life started after he graduated from Emory University in 1990. After his graduation, he hitchhiked across North America and would eventually end up in Alaska in 1992. When he arrived, he entered the Alaskan bush with very little supplies. After a bit, Chris would eventually find an abandoned bus, formerly known as the Fairbanks Bus 142. He would choose to use the bus as a makeshift shelter until his death. His body would be found inside the bus in September. For this one, let me set a little scenario for you. Fidel Castro was a Cuban revolutionary and the leader of Cuba from 1989 to 2008, and during his life, it was no secret that a lot of people did not particularly like him. As a result, during the course of his life, Castro survived over 600 attempts on his life, and as an unintentional result, he holds the record for the most survived assassinations in one life. So, congrats, I guess. Now, the CIA was by far the biggest hater of Castro, and after a couple of tens or hundred of attempts on his life, they got a little bit desperate, so they came up with some ridiculous ways of trying to kill him. Some of them were implemented, some of them weren't. Here are some of my favorites. Now, one of the most famous ways the CIA tried to kill Castro is with poison or exploding cigars. And realistically, the cigars were just stolen by the random person they gave them to. Another wacky way they thought to do is by painting a seashell, putting a bomb in it, and then planting it at a beach where Castro regularly scuba dived at. Now, as you may have guessed, this one never got put into action because it was ruled as unlikely to work. I mean, I don't know. Could have been funny. Okay, one final wacky method they thought to use was to put a needle so fine you wouldn't feel it prick you inside of a pen, so when you push down on it... Hold up, where's the demonstration at? This is the best I got. So their idea was they would put a needle so fine into this pen, so when you pressed it down, you wouldn't feel it inject you, and it would have poison in there. Now, surprisingly, this one was actually implemented and tried, but it was a little bit unfortunate timing, because when the pen was eventually given to a highly placed Cuban official on November 22nd, 1963, the CIA tried another famous assassination. It was the JFK assassination. Fight me. I believe that 100%. The CIA killed JFK. Well, despite all the assassination attempts on Castro's life, Castro died at the ripe old age of 90 on November 25th, 2016 of old age. The Coastline Paradox is the observation that technically the coastline of a landmass does not have a defined length. This is because all coastlines have fractal curve-like properties, which is the idea that if you zoom in to a fractal curve, it keeps on expanding to infinity. Therefore, the length of a coastline depends mainly on the method used to measure it and the amount of map generalization used. The Cocolizti Epidemic was often referred to as the Great Pestilence. It occurred during the 16th century and caused the deaths of 5 to 15 million people. in New Spain. For reference, at the time of writing the script, coronavirus has caused the death of 6,970,995 people. In fact, because of the absurdly high death toll, it is often referred to as the worst pandemic in the history of Mexico. It resulted in the demographic collapse of a few indigenous populations, and continued to confuse Spanish and native doctors as spread. And even today, there is no clear consensus of what caused the outbreak to occur. But according to some more recent studies, Salmonella was at least partially responsible for the initial outbreak. That being said, some people believe that the outbreak was caused by indigenous viral hemorrhagic fever, and might have been exacerbated by the worst drought the region has seen in over 500 years, and the generally poor living condition of the indigenous people of Mexico that started after the Spanish conquest. The Count Saint Germain was a European adventurer who became very popular among the top crust of European society in the mid-18th century due to his prominence and achievements in science, alchemy, philosophy, and the arts. Although he was very popular and prominent, no one knew Germaine's real name. Instead, he went by a variety of names and titles. His name is still known today, as birthday and background is still obscure, but towards his death, he claimed he was the son of Prince Francis II of Transylvania. He made some crazy claims during his life, such as being over 500 years old, and although these are most likely jokes, they led to him gain several nicknames, such as the Wonder Man and He Who Knows Everything. Now, some people took these names and claims out of context, and they thought that he was either an angel, demon, or even the devil. The Dog Suicide Bridge is a bridge that is in West Dunbartonshire, Scotland. It was made in 1895, and for some reason, since the 1950s, many reports of dogs falling or jumping off the bridge have been reported. Usually these resulted in serious injury or death for the dogs, because the rocks are about 50 feet or 15 meters below the bridge. Some explanations for the death is that they are just natural accidents, or that there is some paranormal activity going on there. Emperor Norton, also known as Joshua Norton, declared himself Emperor of the United States, but before his emperor days, he was once one of the richest people in all of San Francisco. But due to a series of unfortunate investments, he would become homeless on the streets, where he would then declare himself as emperor. Due to his previous escapades that led him to financial ruin, the people of San Francisco grew to like Norton, and he had some power around the city, even making his own currency that would be accepted as legal tender by some local establishments. When Norton died on January 8, 1880, over 10,000 people lined the streets of San Francisco to pay homage to Emperor Norton. The final entry for this part is Erratas, or Erratas, which some people spell with one R to avoid detection. This conspiracy theory started in 2015 on 4chan, in a thread about weird work experiences. In this thread, a user told his story where his friend was on a job packing boxes for a company that they got through a temp agency. At this job, his friend's tape gun had the word Erratas written on it, and the guy she was working with told her to get rid of it and not tell any supervisors, because for some reason, in their database, if you ever looked up or mentioned the word Erratas, you would be fired, without question. Now, this was only one user saying something like this, and that could be labeled as a shitpost. But a little bit later, on December 19th, another user would post on the website with a similar story, in which the user asked if anybody had worked in IT between 2000 and 2010, because he wanted information on a sketchy HR program he remembered called Erratas. And in the thread, another user said that was a program that allowed third-party companies to have unconditional access to employee information. They would then state that any worker that looked it up or talked about would either be fired or moved to a non-compute department. The user would conclude by saying that UPS, Unilever, and Ecolab were part of this system. After this thread, about a month would go by until Erratas was seen again, on 4chan, on a music thread of all places. It would be promoting a noise band called KFC Murder Chicks from Corbin, Kentucky. The post linked to one of their EPs, but when you clicked to listen to it, you'd be directed to a channel called Todd Ellsworth, who seemed to have no relation to the band. What was interesting is that in the description of the video, it mentioned Erratas again, and more specifically it says Erratas or Bust, which would later be changed to Erratas or Rusts. But strangely, the video was uploaded a few days before the 4chan post. The next part of interest would come from another 4chan music thread. The user's post said they wanted to create a new subgenre of music called Deep Internet in their post. In their post, they linked a few videos that could serve as examples. The second video is the one that we are more interested in. The video linked was titled YouTube is Monitoring and Controlling My Life, and the video channel name was Chronos for Life, Jurassic Park. The video was very low quality as you see, and the text that can be seen over the video was about the creator accusing YouTube of taking down videos his mother made as a tribute for Jurassic Park after her death. Now on the same day, Chronos for Life uploaded another video titled Here Goes Nothing, in which Chronos notices the sudden increase in views he's been getting and asks the viewers if they knew anything about Erratas or Erratas. In the video description, he states that it was mainly a test to see if the Erratas algorithm would pick it up. After this video came out, 4chan really started diving into the Erratas algorithm, looking for past mentions of Erratas, and of course they found what we already covered. And in addition to that, they noticed that in another of Chronos' old video, uploaded on November 21st, there was Morse code at the end that when translated read Hollywood Astral Projection Clinic. But wait, remember that date? That was only 5 days before the original 4chan post came out. Weird. Later, Chronos uploaded another video where he answers some commonly asked questions. The first question he answered is if he is testing Erratas to see if they will take down the video if it finds mention of itself. And Chronos' answer was essentially that multiple big companies such as 3M and Unilever use Erratas, and he's trying to figure out the limitations of it. Near the end of the video, Chronos seems to go on a nearly unrelated tangent of Jurassic Park and how much he recommended watching the second film. Now let's hop back to the Here Goes Nothing video again. In that video, 4chan discovered that another strange aspect are the YouTube automated captions. Now let me emphasize this by saying that these captions cannot be changed by the user, only YouTube makes them. So it's strange that in the captions they say things such as overthrow the government or are far from 200 Corbin KY 40219. And even more strange is that soon after these captions were found, they were soon removed from the video. Now Corbin, Kentucky is where the original Kentucky Fried Chicken came from. But wait, KFC. That brings us full circle to the KFC Murder Chicks and their band page, which listed them as being from Corbin, Kentucky. Another thing 4chan discovered is that in the tangent Chronos went on in the end of his Q&A video, he kept on mentioning the second Jurassic Park movie, which is titled as The Lost World, which 4chan found out could be an anagram for Todd Ellsworth, the guy who originally uploaded the KFC Murder Chicks EP. Now let's go back to where things got weird, in the KFC Murder Chicks description. Now if you remember, this description had the word Erratas or bust in it, but was soon changed to Erratas or rusts. Now 4chan users started digging through this guy some more and soon found a Twitter account run by Todd that had the handle Erratas or busts. It was made a week before Todd uploaded the KFC Murder Chicks EP, and the first post he made was a picture of a Hawaiian suspect that would become the face of this whole Erratas conspiracy. And the second post read, the deepest part of the deep web was right under our noses the whole time, the postal service. So deep they're not even on the internet. Okay, that seems unrelated, but stick with me. Soon after the KFC Murder Chicks started posting that they were not sure if they were going to do physical releases of their EPs because of their creepy postal service. In their Q&A section of the page, a user asked why they don't trust the post office, and the KFC Murder Chicks said there's a lot to suggest that they are involved in the government's more unsavory activities. They further state that a lot of stuff that was sent to them never made to them, and vice versa. When another user asked if they knew anything about Erratas, they said no, and to stop asking them. But a strange one is when they were asked about Todd Ellsworth being mentioned in one of their songs. They wanted to know who he was, and their response was strange. They said, and I quote, "He's fine, don't worry about it." Now, that throws their past answers and did not know anything about Erratas into question. How can they know the one guy who seems to be connected to all of this and not know about Erratas himself? A few months after that, in March, another YouTuber who was known on the Explore 4chan called XerHerb would start covering Erratas and would regularly upload his findings to his channel. Now, once again, let me reiterate, this was a well-established YouTuber. He was uploading up to a year before this. So, it's kind of strange that after he started uploading about Erratas, his YouTube channel just went completely off the face of the internet. And we're not just talking about YouTube here, we're talking about every social media this man had. At this point, only 2 of his videos have been archived, one about Erratas and one completely unrelated. There's another theory that the channel that talked about what happened to XerHerb, called Toxicologist, is XerHerb on a different account. But there's little evidence to support this. Now this deletion showed that Erratas might just be real, and could prove Chronos might have been onto something. Even more strange is that some 4chan users who'd regularly discuss Erratas would suddenly start to disappear off the 4chan board. Their posts were deleted, and sometimes they were just banned. Now onto the explanation. Throughout this whole journey, one name keeps on coming back up. The KFC Murder Chicks. Everywhere you turn, it always connects back to them. Now, the channel that originally uploaded the KFC Murder Chicks EP, Todd's Ellsworth, On their channel, there was another album that I didn't mention because it didn't add much to the story of this thing until now. That other album is made by DJ Roswell, and guess what? He is a popular member of the 4chan X board, and he goes by the name Roswell. And it just so happens that he made a post on X where he said that he was going to make a band called the KFC Merchicks, and that it was going to be, and I quote, the shit. So at this point, I'm pretty sure you can see how this is all connected. The entire Erratas conspiracy theory was one huge marketing plan to promote Roswell's new brand called the KFC Merchicks, and I guess it worked. But I still have some questions, like why were the people who mentioned Erratas on 4chan sometimes being removed, and what happened to Exerb? He was posting on that channel for well over a year at that point, so why were all of his social media just completely removed? Maybe these are all just crazy coincidences. Either way, this is a very fun rabbit hole to fall down, and I will link the video I got almost all of my information from in the description. Welp, there we go. That is the first part of tier 2 of the Oddities Iceberg. You'll notice this video got out exponentially faster than the last one. That is mainly due to this new editing style. So let me know what you think. Me personally, I love how this video came out, and how you can include a lot more information into the subject I covered. I also dyed my hair very shittily. Look. Well, that brings an end to our time together. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.